I spend most of my time nowadays working with people who have fairly extensive extensions to EXO. They're integrating to lots of other applications. So what I am going to show you today is a little bit of a recap on some of the other stuff that I've shown before, but in particular, I'll focus on an application tool, development tool that we use very regularly with clients who are heavily developed. So just in terms of putting in perspective the software lifecycle and how Acumatica plays off EXO, plays with EXO. So the perspective here is that Acumatica is a global, sophisticated system developed overseas, which has evolved locally for Australasia and is supported and modified by MYOB. But EXO, in contrast, developed from Australasian smaller businesses and built up from there. So it's like highly focused on Australasian practices. So there's one difference, that EXO is punching up and Acumatica is punching down to a certain extent, which if you look at it from an Acumatica perspective, you might have space to grow inside there with features that are off the shelf, whereas with EXO, most of you who are sticking with EXO because it suits your business at this point are extending EXO and pushing out the boundaries. So another thing about Acumatica is obviously being a global application, it's developing extremely quickly. So things are changing, the scene's changing all the time in terms of the value proposition of changing from EXO to Acumatica, and only really partners who know enough about your business can match it with what they know about Acumatica and how Acumatica's feature set is changing and developing. So there are some users on EXO who, from my perspective, should never have been on EXO. It's a missed fit. Had Acumatica been available at the time, they should have gone to Acumatica because their focus is maybe on financials, maybe less than operations, and therefore they would be better off with that the feature set or the focus of Acumatica. So the other thing is that your business might have radically changed over the time since you implemented EXO 10 years ago, should we say, and now is maybe more aligned with what Acumatica does. So again, really you need somebody like a trusted partner who's able to tell you whether, explain that fit and that value proposition. There's a, from your perspective, there is a cost of change moving from one to the other. It isn't a straight upgrade and flicking on your own Acumatica the next day. There is a relatively, it's essentially like at least a partial redeployment. The other thing is your business needs might be about to change, and Acumatica may become more or less relevant to your needs. So again, that's a consideration. You have to keep your eye out for that. The actual model of having a software as a service, completely vendor controlled application has benefits and it maybe downsides for some of you. I certainly talk to a lot of people who would have trouble, I think, with being so used to being able to get at EXO because of its kind of nature of being integratable and open, the EXO part of it. They would struggle, I think, to just move across. They would find it a little bit restrictive at this point in time, and that's a lot of the people I deal with have already heavily invested in that idea that they're able to chop and change and get in and change things around and experiment, and it's kind of it supports an extremely rapid development cycle. So timing matters. It's migration is a major investment here. so what we're saying is that targeted improvements, stretching the boundaries of XO, using it to integrate to other applications and providing automation can deliver a very strong return on investment, incremental return on investment. But obviously, there's a point at which you can get a big bag of features for one migration hit. So again, that's something that our account managers should be well versed and able to help you with. So we talked a little bit about data ownership with having a hybrid ERP, where I don't think very many of the sites I deal with. I think there were two at the Auckland User Conference that actually run their own servers. Everybody else is on Azure or XO hosted. A lot of XO hosted sites. So that security aspect is handled by them, their Outlook, all of their Microsoft products, everything is on a maintained Azure instance. So they don't actually maintain servers. So the cloud question is not always everything up in the cloud or not in the cloud. It's a hybrid, and that describes nearly all of the sites I work with a lot. So they're managing. We can manage our own performance tuning. We can try things out. We can we know our costs. We can decide whether we want to invest in expand the machine, virtual machine or not. It's a well-trodden path, and particularly well-trodden now with a lot of the Azure virtual desktop management systems that are out there. It's becoming the norm, if you like, to have an Azure hosted environment or XO hosted environment that does everything. Email, everything, Word, Excel, all of those things. Now I'm going to touch on a couple of things I've been through before with common automation services to give you some context on what's going on and what people are doing, what I'm doing regularly, and what our consultants are doing regularly to integrate external systems and provide automation. So there is a link there to a previous video which goes into this in great depth. I'm just going to cover a couple of things quite quickly just to give you an idea of what we're talking about with some examples of some common automation elements. So we work within the database security constraint on people's servers, and basically adding on or modifying within the XO capabilities. We extend them, if you like, or we fill in gaps, or we automate processes that are repeated, or remove bottlenecks that are occurring within clients. So they come to us with these problems, and we apply this toolkit, if you like, to be able to do sort of kind of extraordinary things, if you like, with people's bespoke workflows. And they are everyone thinks they're normal, but there's an awful lot of variation in the way people process sales orders, for instance. So the sort of elements that we're commonly using are automating sales order processing, adding validation and notifications into the system, and automatically creating invoices so that people don't have to print them, automatically emailing those invoices based on rules, based upon the invoice having been created so let's have a quick look at some of those things. So an example is if you look at the conventional batch sales order processing method, which becomes a little bit untenable when you've got larger volumes going through every day. And it's also quite complicated because it gives you an awful lot of options as to what you want to do. And people do get confused with the supply screen and which options they should tick each time, even though it's over the years that's become quite set up as a default. It gets to a point where you've got it so well practiced that you could automate it, and you can give us the rules that say a sales order is ready to go, when these conditions are met. And until then, hold it back, hold it as an exception. So I've seen people whose order process, daily order processes can take up to an hour, because when they do a batch sales order process, it basically goes through the screen and pops all the validations all over the place. And it's a bit like being at the bit like a shoot 'em up game. You're having to pop that exception here, say yes to that, add something in there. Well, the method we try to move to is that we validate all those exceptions first up, whether they're custom exceptions, whether they're whether one extra field matches a standard field, or all of these things that would essentially stop during the batch processing and ask you to intervene. We can write those down, and we can make sure that the order will just slide straight down the processing barrel without touching the sides. So the idea then becomes that it's continually processing. You're basically vetting and validating sales orders and conditioning them to the point where they can just there won't be any exceptions, and they'll fly straight through the system. So, and as soon as they fit all those criteria, they basically automatically fall through to invoices they supply, and all those background processes are done for you. You don't need to press the supply button. It's just basically just make the order ready to go, and it will go. So another concept here is that we have these processes, like, for instance, generating the PDF document, invoice PDF document, or the dispatch docket document, and doing that independently as a kind of a microservice running in the background, and that's independent of the fact that it emails it. So the email is looking to see if the invoice is new and has not yet been emailed. It's looking at the rules as to who you email it to. It's then saying, well, is the document already there? If it's not already there, I'll have to go and make it, and then I'll attach it, and then I'll send it. So those processes are independent of each other. They're connected in a chain of events. So there's a number of those things that run independently. There's the validation service that's constantly evaluating orders to see if they fit the criteria for releasing through the process. So there's no need for daily mail shot runs. You don't notice the invoice being created because it's being done as a background process. So this is the concept. So the continual evaluation of orders for processing, it's proven to be super robust. It once running, until you want to change the criteria or add criteria, it just continues to operate on scheduled times. Automatically in the background, no one notices that it's happening. They just get used to the fact. In fact, somebody rang the other day and they'd forgotten how to process a sales order, because they always just satisfy the sales order conditions and then it flows through by itself. So when they had to do one manually, they had to ask us how to do that. So it doesn't produce like the concurrent locks that you'll see when someone's doing a big sales order batch. It's almost like everybody stay out of sales orders whilst I do my batch, because I don't want you changing anything whilst I'm going through it. That doesn't happen, because each order is being processed individually in the background, and so there's less chance of contention with other users. I don't think anybody who's got these sort of engines running notices that. What's the word? Notices any contention. Now, if they do open the order, that's of course kept out of the run. So being open on a user's workstation is a validation condition, which will mean that it won't process it if you've got it open. When you close it, it'll come around again and it will go, oh, it's closed now. I'll process it now. So you're getting the idea. So this pre-process criteria list that we've got is manageable and extendable. It has a set of conditions. It has a name condition, and it has a class as to whether it's a blocker or whether it's just a device or whether it just records a history note. It has a severity as to whether how it can be handled, like a critical stops the process, if you like, and a message that the user will get in the notification as to why this sales order won't go, and a descriptive action to resolve. But also, of course, the script that actually is run that actually constitutes that validation rule. And again, whether it should notify you, or whether it should just happen in the background, or what it should do when it hits that condition. So everybody has these are all standard ones, which would happen if you ran a standard EXO, for instance, and tried to process an order or batch process an order, and it had serial numbers on the order, but no number had been selected, or it had batch numbers and no batch number had been selected, or they'd selected a batch, but there wasn't enough stock of that batch to supply because it had just changed 5 minutes earlier. That sort of stuff is all handled before the order's processed in the background, and an exception is sent to you as a notification to resolve it with a link to the sales order, so you can open the sales order. So it's a kind of a different mentality from batch processing. It's continual processing in the background. So users can see at any one time, they can see on the pre-process checklist here what's the reason why this order won't process, because it's got a batch tracked item and there's not enough batches. There aren't batches for it. Yeah. This one also might say that it's open because I'm not in it, but if I was in it, it would say I can't process this because it's open. You're open in this order, or you're in the middle of your ledger posting. I'm not going to post it whilst you're in the middle of ledger posting because I don't want to create an invoice in the middle of your ledger post. Or you're in the middle of the rollover. Okay, it's a new sales order that's arrived from a website, but I don't want to create an invoice. I want to wait until the end of period's finished. So it's smart enough to know all those things are going on and know to hold it and wait until the end of period's finished. Then the invoice will go through in the new month. So yeah, notifications can come through in many different ways. I've got the Graph API working. It's a little bit complex to get it working, but I've got it working on 2 sites now, where I send the notifications via the Graph API, because that checks SMTP as a different type of email, so they're independent of each other. So if one fails, the chance of 2 email methods failing is extremely unlikely, but if one fails, the whole service fails for some reason, an IP address change or whatever it happens to be, the other one will tell you that, hey, the emails are not sending. So you get told pretty fast if an error occurs. And having SMTP and the Graph API is really good now, because I can actually independently check one against the other. Okay, we talked about that. So depending on how we set up those rules and validation items, we can decide whether we post through the exceptions as history notes. So your history note becomes much more complete in terms of all of the actions that have taken place on the order. I'm working on one at the moment where there is a heavy, it's probably the first sales orders I worked on where they have multiple dispatches and then an invoice, whereas most cases it's invoice all, it's supply all, invoice all. But in this case, it's supply, actually loan stuff, bring it back, supply it, supply some more, and invoice. That's a lot more complicated, and the history notes are become a real key to controlling that workflow. So I talked about invoice document generation. That happens as a microservice in the background, so it's generating those invoices ready to be attached to an invoice, to an email. Yeah. So independent completely of the email process. So the email process is sending out invoices to customers. It's again sending out notifications as to any exceptions in the process, and a summary at the end of each day of all the invoices that are still in the barrel, waiting for you to resolve exceptions. Yep. So document emailing, we talked about that. Just a very, very quick thing. One of the benefits of having all of those emails already pre-generated is that we have a method of securely sharing those with your customers. So we can send you a single statement, and that statement has a link on each line, which allows you to click on the link and it opens the invoice immediately, even though the invoice isn't actually transported with a PDF. So the PDF is a 30 or 40K document, just like your normal statement, but it actually contains all of the detail of all of the invoices on demand when you click on the links for that line. So if someone's interested in that, that can be a real saver, that one, time saver. Okay, so I wanted to get to this, how I'm doing for time there, Grant.
Got five, Sam.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so one of the tools that we use a lot when it comes to something that EXO just does not do, or where they've got very bespoke requirements, is a tool called Framework. Now, it's been used for years. I've developed some very, very big applications using this tool, but it's a very low code visual prototyping tool, which can go from a concept. So it can sometimes help. I'll build the application and see what you like, because people don't know what they like until they see what they don't like. And then, so people can engage visually with a concept of a screen as to how you might do stock transfers in a particular way. And so it's a relatively low investment to get to a screen that's actually functional. Even if when you press the button, it doesn't do anything. It still allows you to build the concept and go in an agile way. Go, okay, let's invest another 3 hours and let's see how we can get it to here. And then we can take it live, and then we can build on it over time. So very rapid deployment, and deployment on site. So it's not, we're not holding it here. Actually exists inside your database and is coded on the fly, if you like, in front of you. Yeah. Consultants will be able to do this. If they've spent some time with Framework, they can develop it. It uses the same concepts as EXO, uses the same security context as EXO, uses the same report writing, all of that stuff, very common, and it integrates and looks like EXO. So here's an example story. So before we did the user groups last time, somebody posted this on the community group in the EXO partner community group, saying, does anybody know how to get the price update utility to use secondary stock groups instead of primary stock groups? And the option on the screen only has primary stock groups. So I said, no, there isn't a way to do it, but I could build it. And so I thought, well, why don't I build it? And so that evening, I built it. So let's have a quick look at how that was done. Just launch this. Oh, you think I'd know how to type that after all this time? Yeah, okay. So hopefully you can see the designer tool there, Grant. Yep.
Yep, we can see that.
Yes. So I've got a couple of applications I've written here, but this one here was like a rapidly developed price update utility. So this tool allows me to build forms, and I can build, if most of you are familiar with the basic price utility, but I'll show it to you in EXO in a second. So this allows me to grab fields, declare fields, write out the dialogues. So, this is, and I can move those around so that I position them on the screen, or I can nudge them around, and I can hide some and I can add some. So the normal stock group price update utility only has from price group and to price group, but this is how easy it was for me to rewrite the whole thing from scratch. So this is the whole what am I call it? The whole price update utility recreated, and as I did that, there really was no way but to add a load more features as well. So I can so you can see I've added here stock group 2, and then yesterday somebody said to me, hey, could you do price group as well? So I added price group, because they're using quick insert to do their price updates, which is really not the right way. That's not what quick insert templates were designed to do, but people do use them for that. But this is a much better way to do it. So there's the application designer itself. So it uses the same concepts as EXO, and the whole design of the application is inside the database. right? So it's inside your database and it's soft. It can be changed. So let me have a look at EXO. So if I fire up EXO here, you'll be familiar with the ability to be able to run applications. So there's the wrong one. There's stock utilities. There's our price update utility, which you'll be familiar with, pretty basic. There's the price update scheduler, but that also doesn't do this. So in this case, you're limited to the stock group, the main primary stock group, not the secondary stock group or price groups, as somebody just asked. So my mission, if you like, was to be able to say, okay, from a standing start, I want to develop this application. I want to develop I want to get to that point and then build the bits I want on top. So down here, I built an alternate version of that, which pops up and allows me to do a kind of a mixture between the price update scheduler and the price update tool, which is kind of a bit of a macro tool. So this one actually builds a set that I can save. So I can choose my criteria. It will remember those criteria. Here I've added in the price group from yesterday and the stock group from the first time I did it. So they're just simple lookups, just like extra fields in EXO, identical in the way they work. I've got notes here, or I can type in this box I wrote in, so you can actually type your own SQL filter. So you can say, stock code like engine. So I can write SQL in there and save that SQL, just like your statement logic. And that will save and run the query when I generate the preview. But that preview is saved. So these are actual rows saved in the database as previews that I can operate on. So I can decide, well, skip that one, skip that one, skip that one. And these are features that just came kind of automatically, because when you write it, you think, oh, why not have a skip button there? But and why not, whilst I'm at it, be able to say, take this whole thing out, save it to Excel, fiddle around with it, and then paste it back. These are things that come automatically with an application tool like this. But the beauty of it is there is no limitation on what this does. So I could blow this right out to a massive application as we need to add features. So I'm not limited at all. But when I write these things, or when a consultant on site writes them, they can write them and then abandon them if they didn't go, or they can start afresh, or you can build applications using the queries that EXO uses to get you up to the point where you're replicating what was there before. So it's not really about this as an application. This is just a demo, if you like. The concept is that we have the capability to build screens like that if there's a bottleneck with your processing, or something that is really repeatable, or is really taking your time, or is really bespoke, and there's loads of different users who could say they've got one of these applications where that kind of nothing would do because it's so unique, the way they want to create stock transfers, for instance. So there's some examples, I think, if I roll up now. So again, it's not about that application, or can I have that application, which is many people asked. It was that the example is I can write this application very quickly, and I can get it to a point of concept where you go, oh, I get it now. Yes, that'll work, and that's worth taking a bit further.